So these were things we were saying during the pre-election period, and it just sounded like these people have come again with their conspiracy theories. But I'm sure we have started seeing the fallout. And this, I remember I was on a show and I made this exact point that this is what these foreign governments do. They will not come out and announce it, right? So this FATF thing, for example, they didn't go and they didn't put it in the New York Times that Nigeria has been placed on a special list. No, they just quietly issue one quiet statement on one website that you will never visit, FATF website. You won't even know why. So it happened to me. I used to use what's it called? A neobank called Wise. You might know it as TransferWise. Now, even though I live in the UK now, back when I opened it in 2018, I was living in Nigeria. So the address that I registered the account with was my old address in Lagos, and my identity document was my Nigerian passport. So a few weeks ago, they just came and they just randomly locked my account and told me I have to prove my source of wealth because I was trying to make a £500 transfer.
Really?
And I tackled them like, what the hell do you mean by source of wealth? Do you think £500 is too much for a Nigerian to have or something? They closed the account. They've closed it. And that's going to start happening to a lot more people. So this is the new reality now. This is no longer just, obedience are saying, or this person is saying. It's happening now. It has started happening. And it's going to accelerate. The US has done their own. The UK, they've started doing their own with immigration.
Yes.
They've started. The EU, those ones are never far behind. So slowly, and exactly what I said, the world will start closing its doors against Nigeria, and eventually even other African countries too will start doing the same thing. These are the results. Elections have consequences.
Now, talking about elections having consequences, David, one of the last push of the people who genuinely resisted these people until the INEC abracadabra and every other thing that is kind of following now, right? So, judiciary is the kind of the last, hope. What's it they call it? Last hope of the common man, even uncommon man. Yeah. What do you see with Tinubu and judiciary in your own view, with all that's happening right now? Do you see them make a surprise by any means?
Because whether rightly or wrongly, I am viewed as someone who is part of the case, even though I'm not actually part of any case, but I'm viewed as someone who is part of the case because of the unique role that I've played in all of this. So I worry that if I offer an opinion, it might become a problem. It might become because I've actually been advised because I obviously have a lawyer. I've been advised
that's part of the case already because your own investigation.
So I've been advised. I've been advised by the lawyer that speaking publicly, especially on camera, about potential legal opinions by the judges might be viewed as interfering with the legal process. I disagree, but at the end of the day, a lawyer's word is a lawyer's word. So what I would just say,
right? I wanted to say Tinubu and judiciary generally in a country where he's the commander in chief, right? That's we can leave the court out of it, tribunal, But go on.
So what I will say is that the tribunal, the judiciary, because the tribunal is part of the judiciary, it's under the appeal court. The judiciary has a very unique situation before it. It has a decision to make. This is not one of those election tribunal cases where it's just a matter of this person said, that person said, oh, they sent dogs to carry my ballot box. Then this one was saying, no, I didn't do it. And then back and forth, back and forth. This is not that kind of election tribunal case. First of all, in terms of the actual election process, there has never been another election in Nigeria's history where there has been as much evidence that has been readily available and that is being tendered before the court. That is a very significant thing. Secondly, the other ancillary issues surrounding even the qualification of the candidates to be involved in the election. Let's just say there's very, 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 very solid and compelling evidence, some of which has already been admitted to court. So the judiciary has a choice before it, a very unique choice that may never be repeated at any other time in Nigeria's history, that You can choose, you have the blue pill or you have the red pill. You can choose the blue pill. Right? You can take what some might consider to be the easy way out. And the consequence of that will be that forever and ever, um, maybe um, people, both Nigerians and non-Nigerians, the level of seriousness that they will accord to the Nigerian judiciary will be severely downgraded. Or you can take the red pill and risk going to war with a Nigerian head of state, which obviously is not a very easy thing to do because even though on paper the judiciary is an independent arm of government, in practice it's not. No, it's not. In Nigeria, it's not independent because the presidency controls the funding of the judiciary, so it's not independent. But it's not unheard of, even in Nigeria, for the judiciary to go against the wishes of the executive. It's not unheard of. So again, we wait and see. As I said, they have a very unique opportunity before them, and I'm very curious to see what they are going to do because one way or the other, there are going to be some very, very, very real consequences of whatever choice that they make, whether A or B. So we wait and see.
Buhari was famous for disobeying court orders. Like I said,
Yes.
right? Where people just felt like the courts could give a judgment and people will now be waiting if the Buhari government is going to honor it or not.
Yep.
Like it has become so that people are so used to it, even to the Supreme Court level, that it took
Yeah.
them days to even consider if they were going to obey what the Supreme Court said on the new Naira note and all of that. So,
Yep.
do you really think a Tinubu can pull off that too, since Buhari has laid the precedent for it somehow, disobeying courts?
Can he? I don't think there's anything that a Nigerian president cannot do. But will he? That's a different issue altogether. But can he? You have to remember that the 1999 Constitution was written by soldiers, written by soldiers who had every intention of keeping themselves in power by transitioning into civilian clothing. So the kind of powers that were written into the Constitution, either directly or by omission or by inference, the kind of powers that were written for the president in that Constitution, uh, most we're still discovering more every day. So and let me just give you a very brief example of this. The process of impeaching a Nigerian president, for example, it's close to impossible. You functionally cannot impeach a Nigerian president because the number of clauses and conditions that the House of Assembly has to fulfill before impeaching the president makes it such that it's not possible. So first of all, the president has to be given notice of impeachment, and that notice has to be for 30 working days. So basically, you have to give the president close to 2 months of time to prepare himself, to prepare a what's it called, a counterattack. And then
Mhm.
during all this time, all the security agencies, bear in mind, the security agencies in Nigeria do not really answer. I mean, they have some kind of oversight from the National Assembly and from the judiciary, but functionally they report to the executive, they report to the president. So the president, in practice, has full and operational control of the police, the immigration, the customs, the army, the navy, the air force, the NSCDC, the what's it called, basically everybody with a gun in a uniform in Nigeria answers to the president first and foremost. So there are all sorts of minefields that have been strategically placed in that constitution to make it almost impossible to get a sitting president out. However, in the case of an election tribunal, we don't. There is no precedent because it hasn't happened before. So, which is why I said this is going to be very interesting few weeks to watch play out.
Right, David. One of the major things that people are hoping that they are not going to miss about Buhari is the issue of the insecurity. Yeah, where it seems that Nigerian soldier or Nigerian army or the Nigerian security agent generally, they are like paper tigers who can only bark but can't bite. But they do bite Nigerians only, right? And somehow, it is generally believed that this is like state sanctioned for them to kind of step down while the operations are being kind of controlled for a certain purpose, right? So here is President Tinubu with all the drama that surrounds this election. And in fact, this tribunal case that is still hanging, do you think, or should I say, what do you see Tinubu and the military? Is it going to be the business as usual, whereby the only problem they will see are the problem of those criticizing the government, not the problem of those who are murdering Nigerians? So what would you kind of predict, if I may say,
So,
David,
um,
on security,
being
particularly
that
security?
being that being that Tinubu comes from, well, he comes from the southwest. Whether it comes from Lagos or Osun, that's up for debate. But it comes from the southwest. Um, he and the constituency that he probably purports to represent in the southwest has itself been a victim of sort of large scale insecurity and acts of terror, acts of violence, such as the Catholic Church massacre in Owo last year. Um, I don't, on very cursory examination, it doesn't seem as if Tinubu is going to be sort of actively providing cover for the terrorists the way Buhari seemed to be doing at a point during his presidency. However, the thing is that these elements, because let's be very clear about this, these terrorists and genocidists, whatever they are, bandits, jihadists, they have their elements in the Nigerian military, Nigerian armed forces. They do. Um, the Nigerian armed forces, I should mention, does not really rate Tinubu as such. He might have been able to buy off the sort of the ranking officers, like the top brass, because that's what he specializes in doing. He pays everybody off. But I can tell you for a fact, from the middle to the lower ranks, they don't rate him at all. And not just for the fact of his criminal history, but also for the fact that he has no military pedigree whatsoever. You should remember that since the return of democracy in 1999, it has only happened once, and that was a Goodluck Jonathan. But there was a Nigerian president that did not have any military pedigree. Every other president has had military pedigree. So Olusegun Obasanjo was an ex-general. Omar Yar'Adua was the brother of the original Yar'Adua. People forget that. And obviously, Buhari, we know who he is. Tinubu is a complete departure from all of that. And there are quite a number of people in the armed forces who are not happy about the situation. So when you add that to the reality that a lot of these fifth columnist elements have people in the armed forces, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that some of this insecurity will still continue. It's not beyond the realms of possibility. The only thing that can sort of stop it dead in its tracks is if whoever the Nigerian president is actually sort of takes a very direct personal interest in it, such as what happened in 2014 in the lead up to the 2015 elections when Goodluck Jonathan decided to tackle the security problem finally, and he brought in the South African mercenary group STTEP, right? And in the space of about 4 months, I think something like 80% of the territory that was being held by Boko Haram was recovered. And then obviously Buhari came in, and the first thing he did was that he ended that contract for reasons best known to him. It was never explained. But when the Nigerian president has that kind of interest, displays that kind of seriousness, the problem will go away very quickly. So does Tinubu have that kind of interest? Does Tinubu have that kind of focus? Is he even capable of having that kind of focus? Is he even aware? These are the issues we don't know.
So we'll have to keep guessing. So the last one, which was said the last time, Buhari, one of the things we believed, like you also said, it was to give a cover to these rogues and all that, yeah. And also the absence of Buhari contributed to, in fact, most of all this mess, where everybody became government in their own right and space. Yeah. And therefore made it pretty much clearer to everybody that it is either there is no interagency communication, or exchange of information,
Yeah.
or they don't even exist at all. They just exist by building and names. You know, when you say a DSS, when you say, okay, who are the DSS? Some ragtag criminals can just show up and say we are DSS.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we say, okay, who are the military intelligence agents? Some ragtag roles can show up and say we are the. So that's the situation we have under Buhari, because it was nowhere. And you just mentioned that that is if Tinubu is aware, probably then he can react and use that influence and that power. But how can he be aware when you saw that inauguration video when he got disoriented on the stage?
It's very clear. It's very clear that this, at the very least, we don't know exactly what is wrong with him, but it's very clear that he's not. The lights are on, but nobody's home. It's very clear, which is why I mentioned that. Is he aware? Is he aware? And I mentioned earlier at the outset that statement he made about the removal of subsidy is gone. That wasn't part of his prepared speech. He was not meant to say anything about the subsidy during the inauguration address, and it just fell out of his mouth. So is he there? Is he present? I don't think so. So, well.
So it's a gamble right now. If we are gambling, David, if Nigeria is gambling on economy, gambling on security, isn't that a direct way of saying we are gambling on our lives? You know something? We will take a break, David. This is like an hour of the broadcast. We'll take a break of just about 3-4 minutes. You might make yourself, any kind of refreshment and all that. And then we'll continue in about 3-4 minutes. I want to listen to that Yaloja General of Nigeria, the first daughter of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. David, I will see you in 2 minutes. Thank you. So here is where we're going to have that break. A break that, you can use this moment as well to stretch your legs, stretch your body, make yourself another cup of tea and all that. This is just the first part. We still have a beautiful long night ahead of us. So you have heard about Yaloja Folashade Tinubu. Power is there. And from the report we received, that Nigeria is going to have a new central bank governor. Yeah, Emefiole was inside the asshole rock yesterday, supposedly briefing Tinubu. But from the report we now got after that is that you now have the president, you have the deputy president, then you have the vice president. So the president is Tinubu. The deputy president, which is going to be your de facto president, is Remy. Then you have the shitty man as the vice president. 3 of them and their ADCs were at the meeting where Emefiole briefed Tinubu. However, Folashade Tinubu, the Yaloja General of Lagos, has now kind of, increased their own title. She is now a Yaloja General of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. She is also the first daughter of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And as she is right now, if you have to address her, you have to say, Her Excellency, Mrs. Folashade Tinubu, the first daughter of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, GCM. I don't know the meaning. Don't ask me. She's already started her own pet projects, youth development, and women empowerment. Listen, that is what's going to be our break. We'll start with this.
Thank you very much. Please sit down. Please. Thank you. Good afternoon in the house. Because I say in the house because I believe we are just family and we are having a family deliberation here. May I just seize this opportunity to apologize for our lateness to start this program behind our scheduled time. I want to seek indulgence to stand on the well-established protocols and appreciate the friends of the Director General. Appreciate the conveners and all the friends here gathered, and all the presenters, the teachers, our lecturers.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the impact. It's very, very educative this afternoon, and we've learned one or two things. We will take it home, especially when it has to go with advocacy. May I just say to our people, our time is not wasted sitting here for about how many hours? It is very important for us to disseminate the information and take it down. Let all the information gathered here today be useful for our people. We're not just here to celebrate each other. We are here to impart. And information is power. We have gotten some information. Thank you, gathered here, to please disseminate the information and advocate to our people that is important for us to join hands with the government of the day. Make sure you pass the information. They said if you hear something or see something, say something. Very, very important. Then it gives me the great pleasure to welcome you. No, I don't want to go through this speech. I'm not welcoming you. I just want to appreciate you because we spent some time, quality time with each other. We've learned from each other. We appreciate all those that gives us necessary information. And I want to stand here to appreciate all of you once again. As the organizers of the events, I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate all of you that contributed one way or the other. We shall continue to work together. It's a renewed hope in Nigeria. Our hope will be renewed, and inshallah, we would all see the benefit of a new government. We would all work towards having a Nigeria that will work for all of us. It is not solely the responsibility of the government. The government cannot provide everything we needed. It is also our responsibility to contribute our own quota. And one of the contributions is information. We'll pass to the government whenever we see anything that is going wrong. And we'll pass recommendation also. No idea or knowledge is waste. Gathered here.
The first daughter of the Federal Republic of Drogistan, Nigeria. So yeah, that's us back from our break. And David is back too. David, you're right.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, man. The next stage, which also affects people, we're talking about policies that, or decisions that will turn to policies that will eventually have to touch or affect lives of millions of people, either negatively or positively. one of the ones that took Nigerians by surprise. The shock was enough actually for APC not to have anything to do with Nigeria this hour, right? Until Yakubu did his magic. I'm talking about the new Naira note.
Right.
About businesses were destroyed, right? Lives were destroyed. We saw old men crying inside banks. And up till now, nobody has given any clearer answer why the new note is actually not in circulation as it should be. Anyway, yesterday we saw in the news that Emefiele was in the villa to brief Tinubu, which also sparked the rumor of a possible ease out kind of arrangement where he's going to resign and a new central bank governor will be nominated and all that. So where do you see Tinubu? He's been talking a lot about giving people credit loan facilities, this and that, to cut corruption and all that. So where do you see Tinubu and the monetary policy from where we are right now, to where exactly, in your own view, where do you see him? Tinubu and monetary policy, please. Starting with that central bank nonsense, please.
So, starting with the new notes fiasco. I have no sympathy whatsoever for Godwin Emefiele. I think, with the exception of Paul Ogoma from the 1990s, who was central governor under Abacha, I think there hasn't been a worse central bank governor in Nigeria's entire history as an independent country than Godwin Emefiele. So Godwin Emefiele is right up there with Paul Ogoma. It's between one of them. So I have no sympathy for him. When he was allegedly being hunted by DSS, or was it EFCC, whatever, and the rumor that he might be losing his job now, I feel no sympathy whatsoever for him. He was personally responsible for a lot of sufferings that Nigerians went through over the past 8 years, and he never at any point made any attempt to push back on any of Buhari's brilliant ideas. At no point. In fact, he was very happy to lend himself to become a blunt force instrument of policy execution by Buhari. It's because of Emefiele that Nigerians cannot pay for Apple Music subscription, cannot pay for Netflix with their Naira cards. That's an Emefiele legacy. It's because of Emefiele that Nigerians could no longer receive money, like the Nigerians who were working in the freelance economy could no longer receive money from foreign clients directly into their Naira accounts via services like Azimo, TransferWise. That's an Emefiele legacy. So I feel no sympathy for him whatsoever. I don't think there's any punishment that is too much for him. So frankly speaking, good riddance to bad rubbish. Now, with regard to what comes next, this is one of those very rare instances where we don't have guests. Tinubu himself has expressed what comes next in his own words, and it wasn't pretty. If you recall, last year, I think it was actually in his manifesto, or what he said was his manifesto, where he proposed delinking expenditure and earnings. What a lot of people, because that sounds like big grammar to a lot of people, what that statement simply means is that currently Nigeria, the amount of money Nigeria spends is limited by the amount of money that it makes. So even if you borrow, there's a certain ratio you cannot exceed based on your earnings. What he was proposing in his manifesto was that any such restriction should be removed. Spending and earning should be delinked. So in other words, if Nigeria is making 1 naira, as far as Tinubu is concerned, Nigeria should be able to spend 1,000 naira. It doesn't matter where the money is coming from. And his brilliant solution, because obviously you can't get 1,000 out of one. So his brilliant solution is to print money. He has said so. Right? He has advocated for quantitative easing, which is a very complicated way of saying printing money. So that sort of Venezuela situation or the Zimbabwe situation where the naira has already taken a beating over the past 8 years. It has gone from about 280 naira to the dollar to close to 750 as at when the handover took place. I don't know how much it is today. So it has fallen how many 100% is that? It has fallen significant by 8 years. But
That's
under
like a four.
Tinubu, it looks as if,
Mhm.
yeah, under Tinubu, it looks as if when we may not be we may no longer be talking about galloping inflation. We might start talking about hyperinflation. It's said he basically is whatever policy, whatever project or money on it, that it should be restricted by the Nigerian Treasury. So as it concerns money, in fact, if you recall, in 2020, shortly after the lockdown, when the federal government actually physically ran out of money, if you recall, and they were
Mhm.
putting out appeals to the telcos on Twitter saying, please come and pay your annual tax early. Tinubu actually proposed to the Buhari government that they should go and print a bunch of money. That's, and in his mind and in his words, that it will spark up the economy. It doesn't matter how, it's just go and print. So I mean, the so-called ways and means
Mhm.
CBN window, which permits the government to borrow from the CBN. I think the government is allowed to borrow. I think up to officially was allowed to borrow up to 5% of its annual earnings from the CBN for repayment subsequently. But in practice, it's under Emefiele, it exceeded that 5% massively. So Emefiele illegally printed money, basically illegally, openly printed money illegally. So first of all, if Nigeria were to be a serious country, Emefiele should be, the minute he steps down from that position, he should be in a police cell somewhere. He should be investigated because he
Or he
broke the
should have
law.
been
But that's
arrested
by the
by
way.
now. It should have
Yeah,
been.
yeah, yeah. But that's by the way.
Hmm.
The shortly before the last Senate, a few days ago, one of the very last things that they did was that in one day they amended the constitution of Nigeria in one day. Something which is like, usually those kind of amendments, they take weeks and months.
Mhm.
So they did it in one day. This story sort of flew past most people. They didn't notice it. The ways and means borrowing limits has been raised from 5% to 15%, just in time for Tinubu to come in.
Hmm.
So officially, Tinubu is not able to borrow 15% of earnings from the CBN. In practice, you know that he's going to exceed that 15%.
Mhm. Mhm.
So the monetary policy of Tinubu is going to be one that is going to be disastrous for the value of the naira, because Tinubu is going to print a shit ton of money. There's no other way. There's no he has not expressed any kind of plan or
I
any
mean,
kind of,
generally, like, when we talk about inflation,
yeah,
hyperinflation, and the rest of that, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, like,
yeah.
explain this to Nigerians in a
Okay.
layman language, what this actually means in practice when things get to that
So
stage.
what it basically means is, um, if Nigeria makes $100 and the current exchange rate is 100 naira to $1, and then going by that, Nigeria then has a total of 10,000 naira. So that's 100 times 100. And then Nigeria now wants more money, but has no way of increasing the amount of dollar income that it has. And then it simply goes and prints more naira. So instead of 10,000 naira, it now prints another 10,000, making 20,000. Since the dollar income it's making has not increased, the exchange rate then goes up. And instead of 100 naira, it now becomes 200 naira to that same $1. So basically, the more money you print without your foreign earnings also rising, the lower the value of your money, the more the exchange rate will be galloping upward. So basically, Tinubu has not expressed any idea whatsoever about how to boost Nigeria's export earnings, about how to boost dollar income. That's not his business. His own is how what with what is on ground, how do we extract more money? Naira. So he's going to print a shit ton of money. He's one of the most important things he has to do, which arguably has already started doing, is that a lot of the people who he has brought with him from Lagos, because there were plane loads of people that came from Lagos, bus loads and plane loads of people who have come from Lagos because they think that is their turn. So they, as far as they're concerned, the Buhari's CPC people and AMP people have had their 8 years of monopolizing everything in Abuja. So now it's the turn of Lagos to come and monopolize Abuja. So every man and his dog from Lagos is now in Abuja, hoping to become one chairman here, DG here, Kinikot, deputy chairman there. How they make
So
money now.
what does that mean now? I think this is now taking us to where I actually would like us to again after this economy part of it. Okay, is this jobs? Okay, if we know that Nigeria is currently with the highest number of unemployed people right now, is scandalous and seriously scary. Okay, but there are others who have become kind of employed through the usual nepotism you mentioned now, the Buhari era, when almost everybody, even Shukudi, want to be answering Alaji just to be able to chop something from what is on ground. Yeah. Now, they are now screaming Yoruba Lokon, so which means from Fulanization of Abuja. And Fulanization of Abuja is not really about the Abuja people. It is about the government institutions and anything that has to do with Abuja, that the Abuja people have to be subjected to, Now that these guys are in Abuja, like you mentioned, a lot of people are going to kind of lose their jobs now, which they got because they are from a particular part of the country. Another part of the country is now in Abuja to do same. So they are now shouting Yorubanization in Abuja. So what does Tinubu's presidency pose for those who have enjoyed that privilege of where they come from under Buhari, the nepotism, which actually contributed to how divided Nigeria is today? In your own view, what do you think it's going to be like to them when they begin to take over all those ministries?
Well, it will be the exact same thing that happened after Umaru Musa Yar'Adua died, and especially after Goodluck Jonathan won the 2011 election. Because there were it was the same thing that happened in 2007. A bunch of people from your Katsinas and Jigawas and all those places went and set up camp in Abuja because Yar'Adua was coming. So it was their turn. Then Yar'Adua died. And then Jonathan won the 2011 election. And then Jonathan replaced all of them with what they considered to be his people. So a bunch of people from the Southeast and the Niger Delta. So those people developed this huge sense of animus because what happened at the time was that they got all that privilege, as you said, all those pork barrel jobs that Abuja offers, all those cushy jobs with high-sounding titles and fat pay where people don't really do any work. They lost all those things. They did. And they ended up having to go back to where they were coming from. So this was part of what even contributed to that huge sense of ethno-religious, ethno-racial animus that culminated in what we now know as the 2015 election. That's part of the reason why a lot of these people were so angry with Goodluck Jonathan. It wasn't necessarily much to do with his performance as a president. They couldn't really care less whether anybody's a good president or not. But a lot of them lost those things. The same thing is going to happen this time around. Tinubu's people now are even hungrier than Goodluck Jonathan's people were in 2011. And there are much more of them who are competing for a very limited number of spaces. So the so-called Fulani beneficiaries over the past 8 years, except the ones who have been fortunate enough to very deeply embed themselves in the system, they're going to find themselves out. That's how this is the tragedy of what happens to Nigeria every 4 years or every 8 years. And that's why when the central institution of the country, which is the Federal Civil Service, when the central institution of a country is subject to so much constant churn, so much flux, so much change constantly, there's no continuity. Because you know that once you enter, you know that you have a 4-year window or an 8-year window at the max to grab everything you can. Because once the next guy comes in, you are out. That's how it works every time. There's never any continuity. So it's going to be the same thing. So the people who have, who spent the past 8 years, I remember in 2016, just about a year, less than a year after Buhari came in, I can't forget this image. It's stuck in my head. I was working then in marketing, and I had a project in Abuja. So I flew to Abuja, and I cannot forget. It was at the Kuba Expressway. There was like this huge signboard that covers the road, and on the signboard, one of these people, like one random nondescript Abdullah, you don't know him from anywhere. Like this person does not do anything productive on this planet, and apparently he had taken out that billboard. That thing couldn't have cost anything less than 10 million naira to take it out. A big electronic billboard, and he took it out to announce his wedding. I can't forget that image in my head because this was like less than a year after Buhari's people came in. So all of these people had come in and they had started seeing money. And they were very eager to show the world that it's their turn. The same thing is going to happen now. So all those people who were doing that for past 8 years, except the ones who have been very fortunate enough to very deeply embed themselves in institutions like the NNPC, they're all going to be swept out. And then a new set from Lagos and Ogun and Oshun, they are coming to replace those ones for another, for however long Tinubu remains in office.
Well, one of the things that Tinubu used for decades to deceive the people of Southwest Nigeria, those who kind of believed him or once believed him, right, is the belief that until Nigeria is restructured, right, there will never be any meaningful development or progress in that country based on this turn-by-turn Nigeria limited of a thing, right? And Tinubu and his people, for years, they have presented themselves as those who would uphold such. In fact, in opposition for 16 years, it was their sing song, restructure Nigeria. Today, majority of them are no longer talking about restructuring. And he's now paired with a man called Shetima, who said, restructuring my put. Now, the Yorubas who were told that there will be something for you, apart from appointment and all of this, so restructuring means so much to the Yorubas that we have been duped by it for so long before the Yoruba nation now took over the space, right? Now, we have a Yoruba man who have always been about restructuring. So could this be an opportunity, if I may ask, again, your view? I know it's a fraud, or you might have another view than mine when it comes to this. Resolving all these differences, do you think Tinubu could push restructuring this time around? Could restructuring actually mean something now? Any chance?
So how I'll answer that question is by telling you a story. It's very unfortunate because the story I'm about to tell is a story about Goodluck Jonathan's administration. Now, bear in mind, Goodluck Jonathan was somebody that I actually voted for in 2015. So, but nonetheless, where he had things that need to be called out, obviously they need to be called out. So there's somebody who I have this on excellent authority, somebody who was there. So this isn't secondhand information, right? Shortly after Goodluck won the election in 2011, the people around Goodluck and Goodluck himself have been making the same noises about restructuring. What's it called? Reducing the size of government, or a report, restructuring, right? So they won the election. I think the election held in like February or March. And then May, they were sworn in, May 29. September, a prominent person from the Southwest, I'm not going to mention his name, but if you recall, during the election in 2011, Tinubu had gone into a sort of unofficial alliance with Goodluck Jonathan.
I know that.
And so a lot of the Southwestern people, prominent Southwestern political figures, had given their support to Goodluck Jonathan in 2011. So one of these prominent figures, who is part of the so-called Afenifere movement. So he bought a flight ticket, he went to Abuja, he requested to meet with the president at the villa. He went to the villa. Bear in mind that before the election, this was someone who had regular, open, easy access to Goodluck Jonathan. Now, this was a few months after the election. He went to the villa and demanded to see the president. And the protocol people told him, "Oga, you can't see the president." And he was angry that this is not what we agreed, that we spoke so much about restructuring, and I'm not seeing any progress on that front. And apparently what the person he was talking to, what that one told him, and this person was somebody who is from Delta State, apparently. And what that person told him was that, so now that we don't enter, now that it's our turn, It's now that we go can't do restructuring.
Hmm.
So the same thing is going to happen with these Tinubu's people. Everybody pays lip service to the idea of restructuring. And it's a very, very useful political tool. It's like a political football. Everybody talks about it. There was a time Atiku used to talk about restructuring. Tinubu, as you know,
Even
number one
Buhari talked about
document.
restructuring in 2015.
Exactly. But as soon as they enter Aso Rock, they realize that absolute power, such as the kind that the Nigerian constitution gives you as Nigerian president, is very sweet. Nobody wants to let go of it. So
Nobody
as soon
wants
as
to
they
leave.
get, yeah, as soon as they get in and they realize it's our turn, oh, it's our turn. Me and my people, it's our turn. So all those things that we saw those other people doing for 4 years or for 8 years, and we're angry, we're beefing. Now it's our turn to do our own back. So nobody cares about any restructuring at that point. So it's the same thing here. In fact, I don't think even right now, if you were to ask any of Tinubu or the people around him right now, that the presidency hasn't even started, if you ask them now about restructuring, they will look at you like, what is this one talking
What are
about?
you talking about?
After the fight that we fought to get here, first of all, do you know the amount of money that we've spent
And
to get here, the number of people that we paid, the number of hurdles just to get here? So we think we did all that and then we're not going to pay ourselves back with interest.
But that would be a
That's
betrayal.
ultimately what all of this is
That
about.
would be kind of betrayal, like a betrayal of decades of trust and investment of trust in him. At the end of the day,
Well,
it's going to be and done, isn't that?
whose fault is that? I would argue it's the people's fault because they invested their trust in a drug dealer from Chicago. They were they have been the Yoruba political establishment has consistently produced far more credible people than Bola Tinubu. The only thing Bola Tinubu has ever had to offer throughout his entire time when he came into public consciousness in 1991 to date has been basically money backed up with violence. But there have been people who have had real substance from that Yoruba political establishment. So I think it's the fault of the people that they did not entrust their destiny to those more credible people. There have been several credible Yoruba leaders since the death of Obafemi Awolowo. Tinubu was the one that they should not have given it to, and because of money or whatever pecuniary reason there was, Tinubu ended up maneuvering himself into pole position as de facto leader of the Yoruba political establishment. He should never have had that position. So ultimately, it's the people that are blamed. Why did they let him?
I bet that's a question that majority of them they will have to answer. David, one of your greatest works is that of the Southern Kaduna crisis.
Yes.
In fact, it was one of those documented jobs you did with other people as well that spanned over 500 pages of documents. I saw that. Now, one of the things people were asking then was that those who perpetrated that kind of atrocity, genocide to be precise, right? Religious genocide in that part of, including the entire Middle Belt, they were those who were in Buhari's government. Indeed, they were protected at the time. And one of the things people said was that if justice was to be served, a day will come that Buhari will have no immunity to cover these guys anymore, right? Now, I know the whole problem is still very much existing, right? Before it becomes something that will begin to keep record of the atrocities done under Tinubu for however long it lasts, are there no means of putting together, I'm talking about those concerned from Southern Kaduna, to begin to seek international manhunt and justice for these characters, including Buhari, if I may ask? A little bit deviation now.
So the very disappointing and very unfortunate thing that I've come to understand about how the world works over the past 3 years is that the concept of there being a rules-based international order is completely fictitious. It doesn't exist. The countries of this world that have power to create and enforce the institutions and rules that people are supposedly signed up to. So your ICC, what's it called, The Hague in the Netherlands, all these treaties, Geneva Convention, UN Human Rights UN 2000 Convention on Human Rights, all of those things. They're just, they exist, but they're only enforced in exceptional circumstances. Uh,
Mm.
how I know this was shortly after the Lekki massacre in 2020. Now, the Lekki massacre was not, even though within Nigeria, the government tried so hard to try and do this gaslighting effort